I was never the jealous type, but the smell of someone else's perfume on his hoodie turned my stomach. He said it was from a hotel lobby diffuser in Chicago, and I almost believed him. Here's the hook. I caught my fiancé cheating because a shard of blue glass followed him home. I'm Evelyn Hart, 31, living in Boston, Massachusetts, on the second floor of a brick-3 flat at 77 Joy Street. I'm a data archivist at the Massachusetts Historical Society, which means my days are a loop of scanning brittle newspapers, indexing letters, and writing careful descriptions like ink bloom at 2:16 on page 4 suggests a rushed hand. My passion project is less digital. I restore old typewriters in my spare room. My favorites are a 1937 Royal No. 5 with a sprung carriage and a 1958 Olympia SM3, a little emerald bulldog from West Germany that ticks like a metronome when it behaves. On weekends, I take the Olympia to the Boston Athenaeum reading room and type my grocery list like it's a telegram from 1959. It's a small quirk, but it keeps me steady. I met Lucas Meyer 2 years ago at a lecture on preservation ethics at 1154 Boylston, a bland conference hall with fluorescent lights and that particular carpet smell that says this hotel has survived 18 keynote speeches about synergy. He was 34 then, recently transferred from Berlin to Boston as a product manager for a travel tech startup near South Station. His German vowels were crisp, his shirts neatly pressed, and he laughed with his eyes in a way that made everyone else laugh too. Red flags. They were there, subtle as watermark paper. His phone always face down. A tendency to look past waitstaff when he ordered, like he'd already categorized them and moved on. And he boasted about loyalty points like little trophies, a man who measured love in upgrades. Still, the first months were warm. He coaxed me into trying rollerblading on the Esplanade, and I coaxed him into typing. He hunted and pecked, while I smiled at his effort. We agreed on a quiet life, shared Sunday breakfasts at 8:30 a.m., open windows on summer nights, inventory spreadsheets for the pantry because I'm a planner, and he claimed to find my order charming. He proposed on New Year's Eve under the Quincy Market lights with a slim gold ring, a simple oval sapphire set low because I told him diamonds felt like shouting. No photographer, no crowd. Just us, and his whispered, "We're Schaffen das," against my hair. We can do this. I believed him. The first real wobble came on March 6th this year, a Thursday. He was packing for a 3-day product summit in Chicago. His flights, JetBlue 2132, Boss Ord at 6:12 a.m. Friday, returning Sunday on United 351 at 9:05 p.m. He showed me the itinerary in his Apple Wallet like a talisman. He had 2 suits, a black Samsonite carry-on and his grey hoodie he swore by for planes. I hugged him in my kitchen at 10:40 p.m. while the tea kettle hissed, and that's when it hit me. The smell, not my laundry detergent, not my lavender soap, not the faint metallic tang of the subway. It was jasmine and something sugary angel food cake, ghosting from the cotton. "It's the hotel in Chicago," he said before he'd even gone. He laughed. They overdo it with diffusers. He left his passport on my entry table. He has TSA pre-check. He didn't need it for Chicago. I tucked it into his messenger bag and found a shard of blue glass in the bottom, curved like a tear. I rubbed it with my thumb, and a flake of glitter embedded in my skin, blue as my Olympia. It wasn't from my apartment. I don't own anything with glitter. I set the shard under my desk lamp. It looked like the corner of a cheap champagne flute. Friday morning, 4:52 a.m., I drove him to Logan. He kissed my cheek, moved quickly through Departures B, and I drove home with his smell in my car. At 7:18 a.m., after he'd landed, he sent a selfie by a window with a grey skyline. The timestamp in the corner was missing. The window's reflection showed a green exit sign in a font I recognized from a Beacon Hill gym, not O'Hare. I stared at it until my eyes blurred. Archivists notice fonts. We catalogue them for 19th century broadsides. The exit in his photo used Frutiger, with a Massachusetts fire code label under the frame. I checked my gut. Off. I didn't want to be the person who snoops, so I didn't. I documented, like at work. Notes in my phone, Mar 7, 7:18 a.m. Exit sign looks like Beacon Hill Gym at 53 Charles St. Hoodie perfume, jasmine sugar, not mine. Blue glass shard, curved, glitter, cheap stemware. At 5:22 p.m., he texted, "Crazy day, late dinner W team, love you." I set my Olympia on my desk and typed, "Love you too," spacer bars clacking. Then I left it there, a green bulldog staring at me like it knew. Saturday morning, I took the T to Charles MGH. I didn't plan to swing by the gym, I just did. The gym lobby smelled like eucalyptus, not jasmine. But the hallway lights were identical to his selfie. On the bulletin board, a flyer advertised Champagne Spin Friday nights. And a graphic showed a flute with blue glitter on the base. I took a photo. I felt both furious and absurd, like a detective chasing confetti through a hurricane. I went home, made tea, and waited. Sunday, 8:41 p.m., Lucas texted, "Gate C14, delays." At 10:26 p.m., he arrived, breathless, hair mussed by plane naps. He smelled of vodka and mint. He kissed me and burbled stories about an innovation breakout and a debate about KPI alignment. When he went to shower, I checked his Samsonite. The wheels were dusty, but not with airport grit. Blue glitter hid in the zipper teeth like fairy dust. I chose peace. I chose to keep gathering facts. On March 10th, I asked him to send me his expense report to practice being a good CFO wife. He laughed, charmed, and forwarded a PDF from his company card. A room at Fairfield Inn, Chicago Midway, March 7th and 9th, $298. 42, 2 dinners, the Southern Cafe, 62. 15, and Irish Times Pub, 81. 90, a lift at 11:12 p.m. It all looked tidy. It could have been tidy. If you didn't know how often archivists find forged ledger entries that match the template but not the ink sheen. At work, I scanned an 1822 journal and thought about ink. At lunch, I looked up the Fairfield Inn's address and compared it to his lift receipt. Yes, he'd included the route map. The map showed a path from Charles Street to Alston, not the Midway Hotel. The receipt had a Boston ride, billed as errand. It was sitting there, numbered 2024-0310, LFT 1187, hiding in plain sight. I printed the PDF and circled the mismatch. I didn't confront him. I booked a small cape in Provincetown for April 26 to 28 for us, using my own card, 412-08 at 77 Bradford Street. I planned to breathe the ocean and decide. We kept living. We planned appetizers for a June wedding at the Liberty Hotel, 25 for smoked salmon blini, 25 for goat cheese crostini, a dessert station with 2 tiers because I wanted strawberry rhubarb tarts. He nodded, phone face down. Then came the breaking point. His startup hosted a spring retreat on April 11th at a Cape Cod resort. Ocean Crest, 95 Shore Drive. Partners were invited for the first night's banquet. He begged me to come. It'll be fun, he said, and pulled me against his chest. Plus, they need to see I'm marrying the coolest person in Boston. We drove down in his Subaru, license 2DT916. The banquet hall had chandeliers like upside-down octopi and small tables with gold runners. Name cards everywhere. I wore a navy dress and my sapphire ring. He wore his grey suit. I felt like a well-labeled archive box. At 8:17 p.m., the CEO made a toast about the one team that makes travel easy. People clapped. Lucas squeezed my knee. Then a woman across the room stood, wobbly on silver heels. She had a slash of red lipstick and a navy dress a shade deeper than mine. To the Chicago crew, she crowed, raising her glass, best off-site ever. Her friends whooped. She noticed Lucas and lifted her glass higher. Special thanks to Lucas for making the spin class fun. Everything inside me went still, like the pause between a camera shutter and the whine of the film rewinding. Spin class? I asked, quiet. In Chicago? He smiled, too wide, too many teeth. We did a class in the hotel gym, very silly. She wove toward us, laughed drunk and sugar bright. Hey, spin captain, she said to Lucas, you owe me new shoes. I still have glitter on my ankles. She turned to me. I'm Sierra, client success. You're the fiancé, right? I'm sorry I hijacked him Friday night, but he literally dragged me to the champagne spin thing at, what's it called, Charles Street. He said the lobby fragrance would match his hoodie. The chandelier light sliced the room into shards. Lucas's face broke into clamps and clamps. That's not, he started. I lifted my water glass, calm as a cataloguer. I know, I said to Sierra, and thank you. I left the banquet with my purse and the ring in my pocket. I sat in the Subaru and watched the ocean beat the shore into rhythm. At 10:03 p.m., he slid into the passenger seat, panting. Evelyn, she's drunk. She's confused. Your expense report shows a Boston lift on the date of your Chicago trip, I said. At 11:12 p.m., the route goes from Charles Street to Alston. He blinked. I had to run an errand for my mother's friend. You told me your mother's friend died last year. He stared at the glove compartment. Evelyn, I'm going to Boston tonight, I said. You're not coming with me. He fell back on charm, on tears, on a hand over mine that I moved. He tried shame. He tried, it was just a class. He tried silence. I drove. At the Sagamore Bridge, he said, I had dinner with Sierra, that's all. He said, we kissed. He said, it meant nothing. He said, you're making a big deal out of cardio. I didn't yell. I didn't call him names. At 12:47 a.m., I parked at my curb. I told him to get a lift to his place. He said his apartment in Alston was too messy for tonight and asked to crash on my couch. I said no. He said, I'm your fiancé. I said, not anymore, and placed the ring in his palm. It felt like dropping a token back into a vending machine that never gave what it promised. The aftermath was methodical. Monday morning, April 14th, 8:06 a.m., I emailed the Liberty Hotel events manager, subject line, cancellation and deposit forfeiture, Hartmeyer, June 22nd. Our deposit was $3,500. My message, we will not be proceeding due to a personal change. I accept the forfeiture as per the contract section 4.2. She called at 10:11 a.m., murmured sympathy, and processed it. I forwarded the email to Lucas with a single sentence. Please transfer me $1,050 by Friday to cover your half. I called the landlord of 77 Joy Street, Mr. Patel, at 9:33 a.m. and asked to change the locks. He scheduled a locksmith for 2 p.m. I paid $312.50 for new Schlage deadbolts and added a chain. I texted Lucas a photo of the invoice and the new key shape, caption, your key will no longer work. I went to my bank, Shawmut Mutual, at 11:02 a.m. I removed him as a beneficiary on my savings and closed the joint wedding account we'd opened with $12,000, $6,000 each. The closing balance was $12,302, 14 with nominal interest. I transferred $6,051.07 to his account via ACH with memo, return of wedding funds. I screenshot the transaction and saved it to a folder on my desktop called April Separation. Inside, I created subfolders: bank, event, texts, locks, screenshots. At 3:18 p.m., I called a family law attorney, Marianne Colby, whose office at 91 Newbury Street smells like lemon furniture polish and clean paper. "You're not married," she said kindly, "but we can send a formal notice of engagement dissolution and a no trespass letter." Her fee for the letter was $325. I paid it gladly. She drafted it on letterhead with language like cease and desist any efforts to enter Ms. Hart's residence and return of property itemized on attached list. The list included the Olympia SM3 because technically I'd lent it to him for practice and I wanted every inch of me back. I changed my passwords. I added two-factor authentication to my cloud storage. I messaged my building's group chat, warning them not to buzz in a man matching his description without texting me. Then I waited for the fallout. It arrived like weather. Tuesday, 7:12 a.m., a bouquet appeared on my stoop. White lilies, jasmine, and a card that read, "It was just a spin class. Let's recalibrate. L." I took a photo, logged it as flowers Farah 415, and left them by the bins on the side alley because lilies would stain my table, and I didn't want jasmine in my air. Tuesday night, 11:01 p.m., someone rattled my doorknob. I listened to the chain hold. My neighbor Gloria texted me, "He's at the door. You okay?" I replied, "Yes, police if he's still there in 10. He left at 11:06 p.m. I recorded the times in a note. Wednesday morning, I found a typed letter slid under my door. It was on printer paper, no envelope. "We overreacted," it read. "My lease is up. My building's under renovation. I need a place for 2 weeks. You know me. I won't touch your stuff." The arrogance sat on the paper like mold. He signed it with his initials and a small heart like a teenager. I filed it under letters DO46 and emailed Marianne. She replied, "Do not engage. I will send the no trespass letter today by email and certified mail." By Thursday, Marianne's letter was out. I texted Lucas, "A no trespass notice has been sent. Do not come to Joy Street." He didn't reply. At 6:23 p.m., my work phone lit with a call from the front desk. "There's a man here to see you," Mary whispered. "Tall, grey suit. Says it's urgent." "I'm not available to him," I said. "We have protocols. The desk guards in our building, 2 retired firefighters with kind eyes and unforgiving shoulders, escorted him out." Mary wrote his name in the visitor's log, with the time, 6:25 p.m., and the reason denied. Personal. At home that night, I typed the entire scene on the Olympia. Not for art, for the sound of reclaiming space letter by letter. The ribbon left a faint line of ink on my finger. I slept with the window cracked and the chain latched. Friday, 1:07 p.m., I received 68 texts in 6 minutes. "You're killing me." I made one mistake. Sierra is lying to make HR look at her. "Remember the rollerblading? Let me in." "Are you home?" It escalated into accusations. "You owe me half the deposit back." I had already returned his half. "You're stealing my life." "I know you're there. I can hear the typewriter." I had not been home. I was at work, wearing nitrile gloves and cataloguing a 1902 map of Back Bay flood zones. The texts came from outside my building. He was listening to my apartment from the sidewalk. That knowledge turned my bones to glass. I called the Boston Police non-emergency line. I reported a pattern of unwanted contact and violations of a no trespass letter. The officer on the phone, Mendez, badge 31245, took notes and told me to keep logging instances. "If he shows up, call 911, she said. "Ask for a patrol to swing by tonight." That night at 9:52 p.m. he texted, "Dropping off your typewriter since you're being crazy." The Olympia was mine, but he had borrowed it. I'd listed it on Marianne's property list. It was bait. I watched from my darkened front window as he set a cloth bag on the stoop, looked up and tried the building buzzer again and again. The patrol car rolled up at 10:03 p.m. 2 officers spoke to him. He gestured, dramatic. They stood still. He left, mouth a thin line. I retrieved the bag, brought the Olympia upstairs, and locked the door with both the deadbolt and the chain. I typed nothing. I let it sit. Work was my refuge. On April 22nd, I presented a small internal training on metadata standards in Meeting Room B, 1154 Boylston, to 6 colleagues and a pot of coffee that tasted like pencil shavings. After, a man hovered at the door like a question mark. He was taller than Lucas, softer around the eyes. He introduced himself as Thomas Dunn, 35, newly hired conservation technician. He'd transferred from the Brooklyn Historical Society and carried his tools in a neat roll: bone folders, scalpels, weights that looked like soap bars. "I'm the guy who makes the broken things lie flat," he said, half smiling. We started with small talk about paste recipes and Japanese tissue weights. He asked about my typewriters and told me he rebuilds wooden planes for fun, shaping curls of oak in his kitchen. On Friday, he brought me a slice of sourdough he'd made himself. He'd named his starter Margaret. We ate it on the steps with butter from a tiny tin he kept in his bag, like a magician's coin. He noticed my precise notes, my timestamps, the way I stacked my folders parallel. "You're a scientist who got trapped in the humanities," he said softly. There was no pity in it, only recognition. Lucas didn't fade, he escalated. He sent emails to my manager claiming I was emotionally unwell, that my obsession with obsolete machines interfered with my performance. He CC'd HR at his company, presumably to look like the sane party. I printed the emails, filed them under work interference, and met with my director with a calm, measured letter I typed on the Olympia and scanned. A timeline of incidents with dates and addresses. I included Mary's visitor log entry. I included the patrol visit number. My director read it, set the pages down and said, "We'll back you all the way." She arranged for security to escort me to the T for a week. She sent a polite but firm reply to Lucas telling him his further communications would be treated as harassment. I changed my route to work Red Line to Park Street instead of Charles MGH for a few days. I timed myself 32 minutes door to door. I bought a personal alarm and kept it in my coat pocket. I spoke to my neighbor Gloria about setting up a shared camera over the stoop. She ordered a doorbell cam, Model 2KT, installed it with her cousin's drill, and shared access with me. The first night it captured a raccoon. The second night it captured Lucas standing below my window at 1:11 a.m., looking up, hands in his coat pockets. He stayed 10 minutes. He did not ring. He did not knock. He simply stood. The footage was eerie. I saved it under Video 0426 and emailed it to Marianne and Officer Mendez. On April 26, the day we'd intended for Provincetown, I went alone. I took the 10:35 a.m. Plymouth Brockton bus from South Station to Hyannis, then the 2 p.m. bus to Provincetown. At 4:12 p.m., I let myself into the tiny cape at 77 Bradford. It smelled of cedar and old summers. I walked Commercial Street with a coffee and the cold wind pinched my ears. At 5:07 p.m., Thomas texted, "If you need a spare pair of hands in an emergency, I have two." It was simple. It felt like the opposite of spin-class glitter. I ate clam chowder at the Lobster Pot, wrote a grocery list on hotel stationery using the Olympia I tucked into my bag because I knew I'd want it, and fell asleep to the clack of ships' halyards tapping their masts. Sometime past midnight, my phone buzzed. A voicemail. "Lucas, I'm outside your door, the Provincetown one. I need to talk." The timestamp. 12:41 a.m. He'd tracked my reservation somehow, maybe from our shared calendar I hadn't scrubbed, or because he knew I liked that town. I did not open the door. I called 911, told them I had a no trespass letter and a person trespassing. 2 officers from Provincetown PD came, lights off. They spoke to him. He argued. They wrote something down and told him to leave. They warned him about harassment charges. He left. I watched through the peephole, heart a metronome. In the morning, I walked to the station and picked up a copy of the incident report, case PT 24 Art 1186. I filed it. I brewed coffee. I watched the sky rinse to blue and felt more awake than I'd felt in weeks. Back in Boston, the thaw continued. Lucas's lease renovation turned out to be a notice to vacate for non-payment. The building manager, who had my number because of the police contact, called me by mistake to ask about the car with too many tickets. I said I wasn't involved and gave her Marianne's number. Lucas sent me a final email. "You ruined me. I hope you're happy alone." I wasn't alone. In early May, Thomas asked if I'd like to see his workshop in Jamaica Plain. He rented a corner in a friend's garage at 47 Sedgwick Street, where the spring light fell through a corrugated window and lit wood dust into gold. He showed me a half-restored Stanley No. 4 plane and the way he trued its sole by blackening it with Sharpie and rubbing it on sandpaper until the ink vanished evenly. I showed him my trick for aligning tight bars with a sliver of card and patience. He watched my hands like they were telling a story. He was careful with touch, if he touched me at all, an elbow to a shoulder when we traded tools, the warm, brief press of knuckles when he handed me a cup, and both of us looking at the object in between instead of at the heat that came with it. We didn't rush it. We drank coffee in small shops and returned to our separate apartments. We texted photos of the odd and the beautiful, rust patterns on an old hinge, a wonky library stamp. He sent a video of his starter bubbling, caption, "Margaret is thriving." I sent him a sound clip of the Olympia's bell pinging at the end of a line. He replied, "It sounds like relief." Lucas tried one last time. May 28, 6:44 p.m., my doorbell cam caught him again, carrying a suitcase. He pressed the bell and lifted his face to the camera, eyes rimmed red. "I'm moving in," he said. "You can't stop me. You owe me." I called 911. The officers came faster this time. They knew the door, the building, the pattern. They arrested him for trespass after warning, a misdemeanor. He spent a night in a holding cell. Marianne petitioned for a harassment prevention order under MGL 258E. We appeared before a judge on June 3rd in a courtroom that smelled like dust and stress. Lucas didn't look at me. I had my folder of logs, times, dates, screenshots, video stills, letters. The judge read. The judge granted the order for 1 year. No contact, no proximity within 100 yards. It was a piece of paper and also a scaffold, the kind that lets a building be worked on safely. After the hearing, I walked past the public garden. The swan boats cut their slow loops. I sat on a bench and typed on the Olympia perched on my lap like a stubborn little dog. I typed one sentence over and over: order is a kind of love. The bell pinged each time, and I felt ridiculous and true, like I'd been tuning myself to a frequency no one else could hear, and finally, the station came in clear. June 22nd would have been our wedding day. Instead, I woke at 6:30 a.m. to the summer city hum, rolled out dough for a single rhubarb tart, and set it in the oven. At 9 a.m., I met Thomas at the Sowar Vintage Market. He found a stack of travel postcards from the 1940s and pressed one into my hand. Provincetown, a watercolour of the pier, all blues and whitecaps. On the back, someone had written in faded pencil, "Met you by accident, saved me on purpose." We smiled at the coincidence and didn't comment. We bought a small hand plane we didn't need because it was beautiful. We shared my tart on the stoop in slices warm enough to sting our tongues. I still live at 77 Joy Street. The locks click, the chain holds. My folders are thicker than they used to be, but there is room on my shelves because I removed everything that wasn't mine. Sometimes I smell jasmine on the tea, and my stomach flips. Then the wind shifts to hot breaks and peanuts, and I remember the tinny ping of the Olympia's bell, and it steadies me. I saw Sierra once, in passing, outside a coffee place on Summer Street. She looked at me, looked at my hands, and said very carefully, "I'm sorry." I nodded. "I believe you," I said, and meant it. Or meant the large thing under the small sorry, the shape of women piecing their lives together with tissue and paste. Lucas sent one more email, unsent in the legal sense, but unavoidable in the cosmic one. A mutual friend mentioned he'd moved to Austin, got a job adjacent to product, and told people I had overreacted to a gym class. I don't mind what he tells them. I have timestamps and incident numbers, a stack of pages in a folder that says only April separation. I have an order number and a judge's signature and a green machine that turns my breath into rows of sensible letters whenever I need a reminder that stories, even the ugly ones, can be read left to right and then set down. The twist: on that first night I threw the lilies away because I knew jasmine would stain my air. He told me he'd forget me in a week. But I'm the one who forgot him.